I just wanted to put this, I'm sorry, up here because I wanted to address this. So, um, Baby Zaddy said the foundation of marriage is not the same as the foundation of a relationship. The relationship is between two people. Marriage should be a deeper covenant. Now, while I do agree that a marriage is a deeper covenant, the thing is that any relationship, any solid relationship, there are certain characteristics that you must have in order to have a good relationship, regardless of what the relationship is, whether it's a parent, whether it is with your kids, whether it is, just, your friend from high school, and a marriage. And that was what I was getting at. And I think the fact that there's difficulty identifying those characteristics is part of the problem, because if you can't even identify that, then that means you're not ready to get married, because one of the foundation of any relationship, whether it's marriage or whatever, is respect. That's one of the basic, that's just a basic characteristic that you should have in regards to just dealing with human beings and any human being in general. So if you meet somebody and they're not respectful, that should be a red flag that this is not a person that I can be in a marriage with or a relationship with. Another thing is communication. If I have difficulty communicating with you, or you don't know how to communicate, and there's no room for you to develop that skill, that is another red flag in any relationship. You can't maintain a good relationship if you can't communicate with the person that you're in, whatever that kind of relationship is. You know what I'm saying? So those are just foundational skills of any relationship that you should have. When you're in a
So
marriage, there are going to be other things that you need. But what I'm talking about is from the premise in terms of thinking about things that you should be looking for before you even get in a relationship with somebody, and definitely before you're thinking about marrying them. If they can't respect you, then they can't be your spouse.
that's a fact. I want to jump in, and I'm glad HD actually made the comparison with marriage and business. That means there are too many people out here that are doing business wrong, because before you even get to the part where you include the government, you must first define business, meaning you got to define the relationship. Then, once you have defined the relationship, you have to set ground rules that govern the relationship, i.e., bylaws, like for a business. Once you have actually done your bylaws and you've set those ground rules, then you have to put in a business plan, i.e., the direction of the relationship, where you want to take the relationship. So people out here aren't even doing any of that. They're going straight to being in business. And the next thing you know, you're trying to split assets. And truth of the matter is, the courts rule in favor of the woman most of the time, and men are out here complaining. Whereas if you took your time and you actually did all of the stuff from that you need to do in order to create a business up front, before you submit your paperwork, if you're going to be an LLC, an INC, or what, or 501c3, and there's about 7 others I could name. Before you submit that, you have all of the paperwork ready to go. Then you submit the paperwork. Now you get the marriage. Then you start talking about the assets, having kids, and how I have doing the house and how all of that stuff is going to go. Like, we are absolutely positively doing relationships wrong if we're going to use a business model. So I understood what you said, HD, but we're still not doing it right.
I think you're quite spot on, because
That's
people
kind of dope.
spend people spend majority of their lives building other people's businesses and not building their own. So why would they know how to build a business when they're used to building somebody else's business? So
Ooh.
I think that that was a hell of a connection that you made there. Um and also, to Mistaken's point, I think I agree. There are certain ingredients that make quote unquote a good or healthy relationship. But unfortunately, in this day and age, good is relative. What you think is good, somebody else might be like, I just want somebody to do what I tell them to do, and that's good for me. And some
Well,
people
that's
might
where
rock
the
with that.
that's where the nuance is when people are saying, "Well, you got to do what works for your relationship."
Mhm.
That's the nuance. That's what they're referring to because everybody likes and dislikes are not the same. What might annoy me or bother me or be a no-go for me may not be the same for somebody else. That's why I say the important thing is to really understand the foundation. What is your foundation? What are your bottom line standard like must have? This is what I know I'm going to need in order for any relationship to work. And if that is something that you're looking for, you need to possess that same character, that same characteristics. Because I think a lot of times, sometimes we project, we're looking for the person to fulfill things in us that we are lacking. And sometimes that's not a good thing. So if I lack respect, you know what I'm saying? I'm looking for somebody because I like the way it models and it looks, but I don't possess that skill. That's not going to work. I need to be able to develop self respect and respect for others on my own before I think I'm going to be able to operate in a functional relationship that's going to be successful, right? A lot of times we are projecting things onto other people when really the work that we need to do is on ourselves first. And once you start doing that work, you just see things totally different. You know what I'm saying? And so I think a lot of times what happened, and I'll say even for me, I have to be honest in terms of when I got married, I I think everybody's gonna grow. Well, in a marriage, you should grow. I think that's part of the problem is that everybody doesn't grow, and that's why the marriage doesn't work. But I stumbled, I think both of us was stumbling along in the marriage when we first got married. We were stumbling along in a relationship. We didn't really necessarily identify specific skills, like what kind of like what AP was saying, looking at certain things, coming up with a business plan, not business plan, but coming up with a plan for our marriage. What is our goal? I just knew for me, the next step in life was to get married. I wasn't just going to be living with a man without being married to a man. So that was my mindset. Like you said, religious aspects. I grew up in a Christian, based household. And that was another thing that was pushed, even though I didn't do everything right. You know what I'm saying? I had a child, it was my husband's child, but I got pregnant before I got married. I lived with my husband before I got married. I was doing all of the things that now I'm advising other people not to do because I learned from that. You know what I'm saying? Luckily, my situation worked out, but my situation is not the norm. You know what I'm saying? I beat the odds, so to speak. But the good thing is that both of us had thank you. Both of us had some common characteristics that were in alignment with each other. So even though we were stumbling our way through marriage, that we knew that we wanted to be together and we were willing to make the adjustments to make things work, even when it wasn't on my favor, even when it wasn't on his favor. Both of us understood sacrifice. That was something that we had in common. You know what I'm saying? So it was just certain things that we had in common that help us stumble forward. We were able to fall forward. It wasn't that we didn't make mistakes. It wasn't that we didn't get things wrong, but we were able to bounce back because we had the other foundation. We had the trust. We had the communication. You know what I'm saying? So that's why I'm saying you need to look for things that is going to be the foundation of your relationship to build on that.